Jonah, arise, go to Nineveh.
Imagine a man running away from God, lost, desperate, and terrified of the future. Jonah, a prophet called by the divine, would be the last person to flee from God's will. But what if there's more to his story than we've been told? What if his disobedience was driven by more than just fear? What if Jonah had a deeper, hidden reason for refusing God's call? Stay with me as we unravel the untold story of Jonah, the reluctant prophet who tried to escape God's plan. But before we deep dive into the untold stories of Jonah, if you're fascinated by the mystery behind Jonah's journey, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Jonah was born in a time when Israel was at its peak, but also at its most divided. The nation was full of tension, with many prophets rising to call Israel back to God. Jonah's family was devout, known for their strong faith and commitment to God. But Jonah was different. His early life was marked by a struggle with the concept of divine justice. While others in his community praised God's mercy, Jonah questioned why Israel's enemies, especially the Assyrians in Nineveh, were allowed to live in such sin and prosperity. Jonah believed that God's justice was too lenient. He knew the prophecies of Israel's eventual downfall, and it fueled his desire to see Nineveh's wickedness destroyed. As he grew, Jonah wrestled with a burning desire for justice, but as a prophet, he was caught in a storm of conflicting emotions. He had witnessed God's mercy firsthand, but it was hard to reconcile that mercy with the suffering of his own people. To most, Nineveh was just another pagan city, but to Jonah, it was a wound, deep and unhealed. A memory soaked in blood and screams. Then, one day, while Jonah was walking, he heard God's voice.
Go to Nineveh. Their wickedness has come up before me.
This was not the first time Jonah had heard God's call. As a prophet, Jonah was accustomed to God's messages. But this was different. Nineveh, the capital of Israel's most fearsome enemy, was a place filled with unimaginable cruelty. To go there would be to risk his life. He knew it. But there was more. Jonah felt a deep, almost visceral anger at the thought of Nineveh being spared. He had seen the suffering of his own people at the hands of Assyria. How could God offer mercy to them? It was a question that haunted him for years. Jonah's heart hardened. He could not bear the thought of extending mercy to such a corrupt and wicked people. So, instead of going to Nineveh, Jonah fled. He boarded a ship heading in the opposite direction toward Tarshish. But what Jonah didn't realize was that his disobedience wasn't just a simple act of rebellion. It was rooted in a fear of the unknown. Jonah feared that, if he obeyed God, he might lose everything he knew. His sense of justice, his countrymen's respect, and perhaps even his sense of purpose. In that moment, Jonah wasn't just running from a city. He was running from the very idea that God could love his enemies as much as he loved him. As Jonah sailed away, the storm worsened. The waves grew higher, and the ship began to crack under the pressure. The sailors, terrified, cried out to their gods. But Jonah, asleep below deck, knew deep down that the storm was no coincidence. It was God's judgment, calling him to face his fear. As the storm raged, Jonah admitted to the sailors, "This is my fault. Throw me overboard and the storm will stop." His despair had reached its peak. He felt trapped by his disobedience, by his anger, and by his inability to understand God's will. The sailors hesitated, but ultimately they threw Jonah into the sea. And as soon as he hit the water, the storm ceased. Jonah found himself swallowed by a great fish. In the belly of this fish, surrounded by darkness, Jonah finally had time to reflect. The suffocating silence gave him no choice but to face his feelings. For 3 days and nights, Jonah wrestled with his thoughts. Was God punishing him? Or was this his chance to finally surrender? What if Nineveh's destruction was part of a larger plan, one that Jonah couldn't yet understand? Here, in the darkness, Jonah came to a realization. God's mercy wasn't just for the good. It was for everyone, including the enemies of Israel. His disobedience had cost him, but it also opened his eyes to the truth that God's love is bigger than his personal understanding of justice. After 3 days, the fish spit Jonah onto dry land. Jonah's heart had changed, but his journey was far from over. He now understood that God's plan for Nineveh was not about punishment. It was about redemption. Reluctantly, Jonah traveled to Nineveh. He entered the city, a place he once viewed with disdain, and proclaimed, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overturned. To his surprise, the people of Nineveh listened. They repented, and God in his mercy spared them. But Jonah wasn't happy. His anger still burned. God had shown mercy to those he deemed unworthy. Jonah sat, watching as Nineveh remained standing. He didn't want to understand why God had spared the city, but perhaps that was the point of his story. Not just that God forgives, but that we must learn to forgive too. Jonah's journey was never about the city of Nineveh. It was about Jonah's own heart. Sometimes we are Jonah. We struggle with God's mercy, and we wrestle with the weight of forgiveness. But in the end, the real question is, can we trust that God's plan is greater than our own? Thank you so much for watching and joining us on this journey through the untold story of Jonah. If this story resonated with you, if you felt the depth of his struggle and transformation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with those who might find inspiration in his journey as well. Jonah's story isn't just about a prophet. It's a reflection of the challenges we all face when confronted with difficult decisions, self-doubt, and the need for forgiveness. It's a story that reminds us that even in our moments of disobedience or confusion, there is always room for redemption and growth. So as you go about your day, remember that Jonah's journey mirrors our own at times. Keep questioning, keep learning, and above all, keep seeking the truth. Until next time, may your heart remain open and your path guided by wisdom and courage.